Welcome to the Plant Eat Podcast, where I have conversations about meal planning, food, and wellness to help you save time in the kitchen, reduce your grocery bill, stress less about food, and delight in dinner time. Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Plant Eat Podcast. Today I have an interview with Pam Mercer of Greenily. Pam is a mom who helps other families make some swaps and changes to their lifestyle to be more eco-friendly, to make some quote-unquote green changes in their life that benefit the planet as well as the health of their families. Today, Pam talks a lot about different household swaps that she has personally made that she has found really helpful. We talk about updating your routines and habits to make those more green, sustainable, healthier for your families and the environment. As well, just in general, some tips about how to be more eco-friendly, what you can buy specifically related to the grocery store, how you can be a little more eco-friendly when it comes to shopping for packaged goods, trying to reduce styrofoam and plastic use, all that good stuff. So hopefully you learn a lot from Pam today, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Pam. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited. I love you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here too. Why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'll try to keep it like elevator pitch. We'll test it out and see. So my name's Pam Mercer, and I used to call myself a blogger, but I ventured into podcasting. But basically, I own a company called Greenily, and the tagline is "Your Family Only Greener." And it stemmed basically from my own interest in trying to live in ways that were healthier for my family and better for the planet, and just kind of sharing what I was learning because it was hard. I started when I had 3 little kids, but trying to get these new habits underway, and it was a challenge. But that's basically what I do is I share what I have learned with, I guess my target audience is primarily moms, but honestly, anybody who's interested in living greener, healthier is my target. And so I just share the things that I do normally that are really simple swaps that I can handle to what we do literally like every day. So it's not going out and picking something new to do. It's just doing what we normally do and tweaking it a little bit to make it greener, more eco-friendly, healthier for the family. So I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I like that your idea is that it doesn't have to be overly complicated. And I want to get back to that. But first, I am interested to hear more about what got you motivated to do this as a mom with 3 young kids.
Yeah.
That seems like a tumultuous time in your life to get
Yeah.
started with this.
Well, okay. So I was actually thinking about this the other day, how I got into this and so kind of passionate about it. And, I didn't grow up like in an outdoorsy area, and, it just wasn't on my radar until I started volunteering at the National Zoo here in DC. I live in Maryland, and I was a volunteer who got to learn a ton about a particular animal, which was the cheetahs, which is now like a favorite of mine, and talk to people about the animals, their conservation. I mean, the National Zoo is really focused on heavily on research and conservation as well. So it was kind of eye opening. And I was like, this is incredible. I love this. And I ended up actually getting a job at the National Zoo, kind of managing those same volunteers that I had been, working with tons of, great people at the zoo, scientists, keepers, all kinds of stuff, learning a ton for 10 years. But after I had my 3rd kid, the math didn't really work. And so anyway, there I was at home with 3 little kids with this like still excitement about all the great things I've been doing at the zoo. And so I was like, well, we can do this at home too. I mean, cheetahs are, in Africa and Namibia. And so we learned all about that, conservation of those habitats and environment. And I was like, well, I'm not there. I'm here in my home. So what can we do? And really we do make an impact, and we can do what we can to make a better impact. So it was just that I became a stay-at-home mom, and that was what I was going to do. I was going to focus on it, and so it didn't work great because there was a lot to learn, even though I still had learned a lot at the zoo. But so yeah, lots of rabbit holes to go down on the internet, and there was no game plan for it. It was just like, we're going to redo everything in the house. We're going to get rid of all the plastic. And, just, it was, yeah, that's sort of, I think, where it really started and how it transitioned to my life at home. Yeah.
That's cool. Did
Yeah.
it end up being that you were like, "We're gonna get rid of all the plastic," and you really got rid of all the plastic, or was it like a
Um, that was,
process?
yeah, that was the big idea. And I do remember like going in the kitchen and like just getting rid of plastic and then being, like not Tupperware itself, but like those plastic storage containers and stuff like that. And then kind of being like, well, what am I supposed to use instead? Because it wasn't like this, I can get rid of this, but let me see what I can use instead. And it was just sort of, I did the same thing with like paper towels. Like we haven't used paper towels or napkins, for a while, for years now, which my kids thought was absolutely insane. And I just stopped buying them. And then, I wasn't I wasn't prepared. So yes, I did get rid of plastic, but didn't have a game plan. So that was part of learning, like, what can I use that's healthier and more sustainable? And so again, another rabbit hole that, I went down and came out of. So,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, a lot of learning, just kind of, yeah.
So you gave up mostly plastics in the kitchen, you gave up paper towels. What
Yeah.
were some other like, what are some other things? I feel like I'm not picturing all of the things that
Yeah.
you
So,
would change in your kitchen
right. So
or your
I
household
guess
overall.
sort of the way I sort of started looking at it was like our entire life, which seems, I mean, if you think about all the stuff you use, you do in your day, it's overwhelming. And so, like, for a kitchen, for example, I mean, it's sort of like more routine based. So like I do the dishes, and so it's my sponge. Is my sponge, is it made of something that's a more natural material that's not plastic? What can I do with it when I'm done with it? Can I recycle it? So it sort of evolved into, those were the kind of tweaks I was making. So again, so then like my dish soap is, I don't buy a plastic bottle of dish soap. I buy something that's a little bit healthier, that is in a reusable container that's like refillable. And so I'm not using, paper towels. I'm using a reusable cloth, or like one of those Swedish dishcloth type things. So it's more tweaks to what I'm already doing. And so those are like, that's an example of one lifestyle routine in the kitchen. I don't know. Does that sort of
Mhm.
answer, like, kind of give you a better
Yeah.
sense? So it's, I almost kind of morphed into like, I had this decision tree kind of going on in my brain as I was like, buying a new product or replacing my dish soap, or, so it wasn't like it was more by routine than by, all right, I'm going to get rid of all the plastic in the house. I'm just going to, I don't know. It's hard to describe what goes on in my brain, but it's really like a decision tree, and it's really our entire life. And yes, I have thrown away all the plastic, or recycled all the plastic and stopped using it. But it's more like one off swaps of something. All right, I'm going to get rid of these. I'm not using these. Let me see what I can find that's more sustainable, that's like affordable, So that's a part of it too. But it really is, I like to look at our life through like green colored glasses. Like, it's looking at it with this lens of, that's the perspective I have. So it was like a perspective shift. It's more than just a this for that. It's just a perspective
Yeah.
switch.
It sounds like it would be a rabbit trail overall to be like, "I'm gonna get rid of plastic," and then realizing all of the places in your house where
Yeah.
you have plastic that you're just throwing away or recycling every time. Like, I feel like once you start to notice it, things would pop up all over the
Yes.
place, and you'd be like, "Oh,
Ye-
wait, the sponge. I didn't even think
yes.
about that before."
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think the first place I really started was, we're going to recycle everything we possibly can, that we use. And now, don't get me wrong. I don't think recycling is bad. I'm just not sure it's the answer. And, it's, I think, one of things to do. Um, but yeah, once you start, like, your perspective changes a little bit and you start keeping like the environment and health in mind, then yeah, you're like, oh, wow, but that I could change. And that's not, probably the best. And, and I'm not wasn't trying to be perfect either. I just was trying to, out of the choices I had, how could I pick, the best? So maybe it's not green, it's greenish sometimes, but because there's also balancing, the cost of things, and is it still convenient? Does it still work with the way your family lives? Like, I have teenagers, and they have a lot of opinions. Like, we want, or they're going to bring stuff into the house. So, it's all like a balancing compromise act with this overall sort of, lens of, okay, well, how can we keep our health and the environment in mind? Things still pop up. I'm still like, oh, wow. Let me see how I can find what's, better alternative for anything random. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think was the most difficult thing to either give up or swap? And maybe not for you personally, but for your family
Yeah.
overall?
Well, I have to say, I think paper towels and paper napkins, which my kids were probably like middle schoolers at that point. And wow, I mean, anytime a friend came over, I was, and a friend was like, "Oh, can I have a paper towel?" My kids were like, "Oh, my mom's weird. You don't have paper towel." I'm like, "Yep, that's me. That's me." I'm like, I don't care. I'm the weird lady. But I do think that was hard. I mean, it's such a, I mean, we were one of those families that the rolls on the paper towels are on the thing, and you're just like, pulling and pulling and, you're just using a ton, and that's fine. And again, I don't like to judge what other people do. That's totally fine. You can, it's completely up to you. But it was something that I thought was important. I got a lot of pushback. Toilet paper was another thing, that not using toilet paper, although I did try to get them to do that at one point, and they were like, no, like during the pandemic, I think, when, there was no toilet paper, and I was like, oh my, okay, that did not go over. I didn't even go that far there. So, but we do use like a bamboo based toilet paper from this small business that I think is great. And, so it's a little bit better. I'm still using toilet paper. I didn't go that far with my family. So hard is relative, it's not just me. I think that's part of what I like to share with other people too, is like, we're talking about the whole family here. I mean, I think it's different if it's just you and you want to make changes. I let my kids have some say, I'm not the total, you know, tyrant. Like, no, you're not, so if they bring a paper napkin in, I'm not going to fit, but they know where I stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a really good idea of why we should reduce plastics overall, but I'm not sure that I'm totally clued into why we need to be reducing, things like paper towels and toilet paper and stuff. Can you like enlighten me on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it is not just what happens to them after landfill waste, which can, create, methane gas. And there's this whole landfill. I guess some people think no big deal, it's a hole in the ground, but it does have consequences that have to be managed. So not only where it ends up, but all the resources that go into having to produce paper towels, like, water, obviously natural resources. So and then the process to make them is using energy. So, it's a whole kind of process. And so for me, it was important and it made sense to reduce that given how much we were using. So is it going to make or break things? I don't know, but is it something I was doing a lot of? Yes. And so was there a way for me to do it better that is not super inconvenient or super more, way more expensive? Yeah. So I, like, for that, chose to take that thing, and sort of because of those reasons, natural resources and the waste it would produce after. So those made sense to me to try to conserve. So
Yeah,
I guess maybe people think trees and paper towels, but I mean, there's a lot to something as simple as paper towels. I mean, at least in my
sure.
mind.
Yeah, I'm sure that if I were to go into a deep dive into it, I would probably be really shocked as to what goes into paper towels. Because even just off the top of my mind, I'm like, oh, there's like chemical bleaching and, like
Uh-huh.
all sorts of
Yeah.
processes that are happening, at least when you're buying the white paper towels or
Right. And
even the colored ones.
yeah, right. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, I think I have that type of brain that likes to, like, go over stuff, and like, really like deep dive, and then like think a lot, and then, finally come to a decision. But
Yeah. So now that you have, I guess, like a lifestyle that you would, consider to be like a more eco-friendly lifestyle,
yeah,
what do you do? Do you have any like tools or anything that you use to maintain what you do? Because I'm sure they're like you were talking about, you have teenage kids and
yeah.
you're like they're bringing things home. Yeah, like what do you do to maintain it in your house?
Well, I think it's on both sides. So I maintain what comes into the house by trying to switch away from plastic to switch to reusables. If you buy something that's reusable, you don't have to buy it over and over. So that kind of cuts down for things that are like toilet paper, for example. Like I set up a subscription service for that. So I know I'm always going to have, because part of it is I would run out of the recycled toilet paper, or I'd run out of the reusable, something that I had to replace, but that was maybe a better material, and then have to buy the thing that I didn't want to buy wrapped in plastic. And so setting up kind of in advance, making sure those things are on hand. And then on the kind of getting rid of it. And obviously if it's reusable, I can keep it. But, we have probably, I think we have no, 5 bins in our kitchen for separating trash. We have to separate paper and plastic where I live. We have a bin for plastic bags. Like if we have like a bread bag or even like a tortilla bag, we have a place we can drop off those. So I do a lot of separating, and then I compost. So on that end, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's kind of
Yeah.
what, it's what comes in, and then how it goes out is all part of, maintaining that sort of lifestyle that's more sustainable. Again, not perfect. We have trash for sure that, I guess if you're one person, you could have less, almost zero trash, but we have trash. So yeah. So that's kind of how I manage it. So
Yeah. What was the process like of getting your kids involved in that and teaching them? Did that feel pretty easy or was it a bit more challenging to teach them
oh
about
no,
it?
I still nag them. I'm still like, you gotta wash that out before you you know. I mean, they get it. I only have 2 at home right now. One's in college, but so at the very beginning, I printed out like pictures, like drawings of the things that went in each bin, like because they couldn't read at the time, and so that was kind of how, I would kind of encourage them to put things in the right bin. And, they saw the things that I was bringing in. I was always talking about it. So I think it's sunk in. And, I actually think I still have the pictures on the bins. I don't think I ever upgraded to like words. I mean, it probably helped my husband too to have pictures, just, he's not, he goes along with my wishes. He doesn't think about this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, getting them on board is, they didn't have a choice. So it's just, yeah, I mean, but they didn't have a choice. But I think it's synced in, and it's sinking in, and I see them making, choices. They still call me like the crazy green mom, but I'm okay with that. So, yeah.
I'm kind of imagining that it would lead them to be a little more prepared because I'm just thinking, like to have your reusable water bottle with you to think like, oh, I'm leaving the house. I should have a water
Yeah.
bottle with me, or I should keep one in my car or something like that. I
Yeah.
imagine your kids are a little more prepared when it comes to that stuff just because you've ingrained that in them.
Yeah. And I think because the choices they have at home, there isn't, a case of plastic water bottles in the fridge downstairs. There's only a cabinet of stainless steel reusable bottles. But I for sure know that it, it's getting ingrained. I mean, I've been doing it for so long, and, it's just the way they've sort of grown up. And I like to think I'm not extreme. Sometimes it's not perfect, but it's a goal anyway. It's
Yeah.
something to strive for, and I think they get that, which is nice to see, when your kids are grown up and you're like, "Oh, they really did listen.
Right.
They really did hear what I said. They weren't
Right.
totally ignoring me." It's nice to see
Well,
that.
I like that you think about it as a goal because I would think that if you're always striving for perfection, it would be really disappointing because there is so much plastic and, disposable things in our lives.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's a goal, and so it's, again, it's not always perfect. And yeah, if I have to throw something in the trash, or if I, really wanna drink when I'm out and it comes in something disposable, I'm like, okay," but I'm not gonna, So yeah, it's a goal. It's a goal
Yeah.
that it's just important. I think even the little things, I think they matter. I think I think what you do doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think it's just a goal. That's the way I look at it. I think trying to be perfect, yeah, so disappointing, super stressful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I got other stress to deal with, so that's I don't need, yeah, just but I do put a lot of pressure on myself to I actually enjoy it trying to find a version of something I need that is, you know, better for the planet. That's gonna make a little less impact, I guess. So
Right. So if there's anybody listening who has this as their own goal of being a little more eco-friendly in their house, do you have like 3 tips or maybe like 3 places for them to start that, maybe are
sure.
not overly complicated?
Yeah, I think if you can start with a habit or something that you do all the time. Like for moms, I'm not saying moms are the only ones that do these routines over and over, but in general, things that you do all the time, like, maybe you clean up after a meal. You and your family clean up after a meal. Start with the things that you already do, and then pick that routine and say, all right, let me see I'm using paper towels. Maybe I can switch to either a reusable cloth or something that's not disposable. And, that's the type of stuff I like to share with other families. Like, hey, I found this, great product that helps me, do X, Y, and Z. And this is why I think it's a good swap. And it actually works and it's easy. So that's the stuff I love to share that I find. So I know that's not super specific, but if you just pick one routine, like something you do all the time, like you do a lot of laundry. Okay, great. Is there a laundry detergent that maybe is a little healthier for your family, or maybe it's in a packaging that's not plastic to help you reduce plastic? That's great. That's one thing. And it's something that you do a lot and it's making a change. So I could give you, a whole routine and then kind of tell you, the pieces of I will break down a routine and say, these are the products I'm using and let's see if we can make changes to those. And again, that's the type of stuff I like researching to figure out what are other products you can use, which ones work, because that's another big thing. How much more expensive or not are they? And then sharing that with other families who can just skip all the rabbit holes, and skip the research and just say, okay, this is somebody that I am coming to, trust. So I'm going to try her recommendation, So,
Mhm.
um, hopefully thinking about it that way for somebody who is wanting to get into this is a little less overwhelming sounding, thinking of
Yeah,
it I tend to not like say, here's the top 10 things you should do because those kind of take you maybe out of your regular routines and kind of have you all over the place. But at least for my brain, it was easier for me to pick like, here's something I do, in one area all the time. Let me tweak those things. So hopefully that makes it easier and doable for someone, maybe new to wanting to make some changes. So
yeah, that does feel less overwhelming to think about, just thinking about how I can redo the laundry routine and make it a little more, like, sustainable rather than, "Okay, we're gonna replace everything that's plastic in my house this weekend."
yeah, because then yeah, I mean, and that's supposed to become a new habit. I mean, I think a lot of people are really on autopilot when it comes to like, okay, I go in the grocery store and these are the things that I pick. And so it's like the different perspective and then sort of changing the habit and getting off the sort of autopilot or making a new kind of autopilot routine of, okay, these are now I have my routine. My subscription of my toilet paper comes in and my laundry detergent comes in if it's not at the grocery store. So those are my new habits. And
Mm.
I really think it's about habits, which are hard to change. They take effort, but then they're there. And then, you know, you're on autopilot. So
I feel like my perception of switching to more eco-friendly products is that they're often a little bit more expensive. Do you have any tips or ways that you keep it a little more budget friendly?
yeah, I think that is unfortunately the case. I do think that a lot of prices, I think, because so many more products are coming on to the market that are actually eco-friendly. I tend to sort of use some guides to see, if they are actually or not. So I think that is bringing prices down, for sure. So, I do things like try to do like a subscription if I need something, because then it sort of brings the price down a little bit. And, it's not a one-time purchase. I think things that keep people away from making changes because it can be more expensive. So
Mhm.
that's something that I'm hoping to focus on more with the content I put out is what the costs are too, because I do think in some cases it's not, especially if you've got something reusable that you're going to use over and over and over, instead of purchasing the non-reusable multiple times. So I can't say for with every case that it is more expensive because there's other things to consider too. So especially if it's again reusable. So,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping to focus more on that because I do think it's the prices are coming down, and so maybe not a deterrent, to
Yeah.
people who are kind of thinking
Right. I do think that is a good way to look at it as more of a price per use
right, yeah,
situation rather than looking at the price overall because like you're talking about with reusable paper towels, well, uh, I don't remember I have some reusable paper towels and I don't remember how much I paid for them.
right, yeah,
But, it's like, say you spend $12 for a roll of 12, so it's a dollar
yeah,
each. But, I mean, I've had those reusable paper towels for 5 years or
right,
something,
right,
like a really
yes,
long time.
yeah.
And so the price per use is less than a penny each time,
Right. Yes. So that's, I mean, and that's, not something that you may not think about as you're about to, outlay the money for, because I know things like the stainless steel reusable containers and glass containers. Man, some of those are really pricey, and you're like, ah, gosh, like I know it's safer and healthier and not plastic, but man, that kind of hurts. So places like Home Goods, I don't know if that's nationwide, but like they have great like discounted prices on stuff like that. So yeah, it can seem super expensive at the outset, but to try to the price per use is definitely important. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
curious to like see a real like a big comparison between just see a big comparison of like two like major routines or something and compare, and I don't know. I'd be interested to see that too. So kind of comparing real actual costs, like cost per use numbers.
I wanna pivot a little bit into food waste, since we talk about food a lot on here.
Yep.
And I know that you use Plan to Eat.
Yes.
But I am the one thing that I'm thinking about right now, so this episode will go out in the summer, in the
Yeah.
beginning of summer, and summer to me is a time that to me, it feels like there's a lot of, like, on the go or to go food, with, like, travel or road
Yeah.
trips, or you're just, like, spending a day at the lake or something, and you're taking a
Yeah.
picnic with you. Like, what are some ways that people could try to be more mindful about how they're doing their, like, to go food and on the go food
Sure.
for the summer?
Yeah. I think, when you're to go, you probably don't want to bring like a glass container with you. I mean, you could, but maybe not ideal just in case, since you're running around and stuff like that. I probably wouldn't bring like glass to the beach or whatever. But I think there are some great alternatives out there. Like, there's some silicone reusable bags that it's like a Ziploc bag, but it's, not plastic and it's reusable. And so that's a great kind of eco-friendly, reusable, kind of packable option. There's some other great options out there that are they're paper, but they're recyclable, and there's a compostable version. So those are great like to go type items for food, and no styrofoam coolers. So oh, God, those were so popular when I was like they were just everywhere. I mean, and then I think if you're bringing drinks with you, and I love a Diet Coke every now and then. I think, that's fine. Buy the aluminum can versus the plastic bottle of it. Like if you're bringing s- drinks like that, some sodas or whatever, or sparkling water, do it in the aluminum can. That's so much more recyclable than
Mm.
plastic. I mean, aluminum is like infinitely recyclable. And so little things like that, even to me, I'm just skipping plastic altogether, but I'm still doing what I would normally do. I still get my Diet Coke. It's just, not in a plastic bottle. It's in a can. Napkins, yeah. I mean, I know you don't want to carry around like cloth napkins with you. I mean, you could, but you could bring those with you. If we do use paper or anything, then we just compost it at home. So, but again, you don't want to lug a bag of trash all around with you, maybe. So again, that might be a, a time where I'm not perfect and something goes in the trash and I'm not carrying it in a plastic bag. Probably I'm carrying it in some sort of reusable bag. So yeah, just all the little pieces are sort of tweaked a little bit, but
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioning the styrofoam cooler made me think that I was in our local outdoor store a couple days ago, and they had this cooler that was it looked like it was almost made out of, like, cardboard. I think
oh
it's
yeah,
made out of, like, really densely
yeah,
packed recycled paper or something.
yes. I think it's my igloo.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I actually have one. Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was really neat, and, I mean, supposedly it's reusable as long as you dry it
Yes.
out and stuff, so that's a
Yeah.
really cool alternative.
Yes, I've been seeing those actually in like regular. I think in where I'd see a styrofoam cooler in the past, I'm seeing those kind of, coming,
Mhm.
being more available. And yeah, I actually have one. So they are reusable. They actually
Yeah,
dry it out and stuff. It doesn't
yeah,
like disintegrate with the ice, because you put ice in
right.
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Or I guess you could do ice packs that aren't going to melt quite like an ice cube. But yeah,
yeah.
there's
Yeah,
lots
and
of cool.
they're like $10 instead of, buying a big, like, hard cooler for
Right.
hundreds of dollars.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah. So there's lots of stuff out there that's really a really good swap for something that's, maybe not as eco-friendly that again, people are on autopilot. They just may not even think to look for something different. So
Right.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
What I'm for.
And so when it comes to the food that you're buying, do
Yeah,
you, how do you go about reducing some of the waste with food? Because 'Cause I'm just visualizing my refrigerator right now. I'm
I
like,
know.
feels like everything is in plastic in my refrigerator right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do a couple things. As much as I would love to buy pre-cut packaged like produce because it's a time saver, I'll just stick to, the unpackaged, whole fruit or vegetable, whatever it is. And I use a reusable produce bag in the produce section. However, a lot of the stuff like celery, for example, sometimes comes in a plastic bag or carrots. That type of plastic bag is actually recyclable with
Mm,
your plastic shopping bag. So even if I do bring it into the house, I can, in that case, I don't have to put it in the trash. So if I can ever buy like a beverage, if it's in either a glass container or even a paper container, I don't know, like orange juice or something, I won't buy a plastic bottle of it. I'll buy the paper container of it instead. Um, so those are kind of ways I'm making it a little more eco-friendly. And for, packaging and stuff like it's a whole nother, just trying to keep it eco-friendly is, I know
mhm.
they say shop the outside of the grocery store most, but there's
Yeah.
stuff on the inside too that I need. So it's just really trying to, if there's an option that isn't plastic, going with that, and then trying to recycle the pieces of it that I can, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm visioning even, thinking about the butcher and going to the butcher counter instead of
yeah,
picking things up from the, like, cold cases because they'll at least give it to you in butcher paper.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
That's another great tip. Yeah, doing it that way instead, because otherwise it's in plastic and like styrofoam and,
Mhm.
so yeah, there's so much packaging in grocery stores. And there is a really cool symbol on a lot of products now, which tells you exactly how to recycle each of the components of a package, um, which I find really super cool, but I like that stuff. So
Yeah.
like it'll tell you like the plastic bag on the end, like for cereal. What can you recycle that plastic bag? And what do you do with obviously the paper box? And so it's pretty cool. It's helpful. So again, if I see a product that, I'll look for that symbol to know, is the plastic bag recyclable? And then I'll get that one over the other one. So I think a lot in the grocery store too. I'm
Yeah.
always okay. Yeah. So those are things that I do in the grocery store that again are, I'm just looking at things a different way. So yeah.
Right.
just seeing all the packaging and all the plastic and, um, and making sure I'm buying like what we're actually going to use, especially for fresh food, which, plan to eat is super helpful. I mean, so helpful. But I'm not just saying that because I'm on your podcast, but literally, it's huge. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did want to talk to you about food waste itself because you said that you compost, but I
Yes.
was curious what you do to try and reduce food waste and maybe not have to compost so much.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, and again, I'm not just saying this, but to plan what we're going to eat, especially the fresh food, it is a huge game changer. I mean, to be able to have a plan and only buy what we are planning to eat. I mean, again, my plans are perfect, but they're pretty, I get way closer to not, finding the potatoes in the, or whatever it is, the back in the back of the refrigerator that's now disgusting. That's I forgot I had it. That is huge, is to plan. I mean, for me, and then to save things, in a container that's going to keep it fresher for longer. So if it's a glass airtight container or a reusable zip top bag, those also help a lot. But not having like a ton of stuff that I'm never going to use sitting in the refrigerator is huge, and planning and, making that conscious kind of plan and choice is when we have the least amount of compost.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you do any sort of meal prepping or like food prepping to make food last longer at all?
Wow, it's such a goal. It's such a goal. If I'm going to do that, it's gonna be like what I try really to do is any fresh produce I bring in, try to like make sure it's washed and cut up. That's kind of as far as I can get with meal prepping. But again, it's a goal to like meal prep the whole thing. But yeah, to just store things correctly. I mean, there's so many things online, with how to store like fresh herbs and other types of things that, you wouldn't think of like in a mason jar in water, like it's flowers, which that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, really trying to, when I bring it home, make sure it's ready to go and it's, stored in a container that's going to keep it fresh. Because if it's
Hmm.
not moldy, then we're going to eat it. If it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
mushy, we're not going to eat it. So, yeah. I think people sort of get deterred from maybe making changes because of, I think price is a big part of it, but also thinking that it's really hard to, cut down on like your food waste, or that it's really hard to use less plastic, and, that it's this kind of big, overwhelming project you have to take on. And it's really, it's not, it doesn't have to mean things are less convenient. It doesn't have to make your life harder. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have anything more specific other than to say that, I don't try to push people to make changes, but I think if someone's interested, that they don't, it's not that hard. It's
Yeah.
definitely, it's definitely doable. There's lots of cool tools like, Plan to Eat out there that really help. There's lots of cool new products coming onto the market that do just what your plastic, throwaway version will do that, you know, that are out there. So, and you got to look for them kind of right now. They're not lining the grocery store shelves or, the shelves at Target. You sort of have to look for them. And that's what I love doing. So, I love looking for that kind of stuff. So, and I'm happy to share it with people. So,
Yeah. Yeah, you do have so many great tips. We had you on our Instagram stories of several
oh,
years
yeah, I
ago.
remember that. Yep.
Um, and that was actually when I started using reusable paper towels and
Oh,
started using stasher bags because you've talked
oh,
about
yeah. Yes.
both of those during that. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that it was probably an easy swap.
yeah. And I had to say, I feel like stasher was the first, maybe one of the first that was the most recognizable. And there are so many alternatives now.
I know. Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
which is really wonderful. So even though they're still hard to find for some of the things, it is becoming a little bit more ubiquitous in some areas, I
Yeah. It's
think.
getting a little more mainstream and, again, but like if you look at a shelf in the grocery store, it's like a couple things that are eco-friendly,
Yeah.
surrounded by like, the mass stuff, which, that's the way it goes. So it's getting there. But yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll have to dig around and find that stuff and share it. So
Yeah. Well, before we leave, why don't you just tell everybody how they can connect with you and find you online?
yeah, sure. So I'm mostly on Instagram and my handle is at Greenily CO. So check me out there for sure. I love to share stuff there. And you can email me, Pam at greenily.co, not .com, for any questions, anything you want to learn about. I need a new version of X. I'd love, I'll find it. Find something that's better. So yeah, I'd love to hear from, anybody, and would love to see you guys online over at Instagram. So cool.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. This has been awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. Thank you.
As always, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. There will be links in the show notes to follow Pam online, as well as to find her online on her website. And if you are enjoying the Plan to Eat podcast, please make sure you subscribe and give us a rating and review on your podcast app. Thanks again, and I will talk to you again in 2 weeks.